You won't believe how this small-town murder was solved. Subscribe now for more authentic crime tales. Remember to like, share, and engage with us in the comments below. It was a bitterly cold morning in November 2003 when a North Dakota state trooper discovered something strange near a ravine outside Crookston, Minnesota. Snow covered the ground, untouched, except for a trail of faint drag marks leading down toward a frozen creek bed. The officer followed them slowly, his breath forming clouds in the icy air. Then, beneath a pile of branches, he saw what looked like a piece of bright pink fabric. When he brushed away the snow, his heart sank. It was a woman's sweater. The same pink one worn by a missing college student named Dru Sjodin, the young woman whose face had been on every television and bulletin board across the upper Midwest for months. For weeks, the entire region had searched for Dru, volunteers, police, and even strangers from neighboring states. Now, standing in the silence of the forest, that search had come to an end. But the question that haunted everyone was simple. Who could have done this, and how had they hidden for so long? Before the discovery, no one could have guessed how this small-town disappearance would unravel one of the most chilling and complex cases in American true crime history. Because behind Dru's tragic story was something even darker, a legal system that had missed the warning signs. Dru Sjodin was a 22-year-old college student at the University of North Dakota. She worked at the local mall, studied graphic design, and was known for her energy and warmth. On November 22, 2003, she finished her shift at Victoria's Secret around 5 p.m. and called her boyfriend while walking to her car. That phone call ended abruptly. Her phone went silent. Within hours, she vanished. Police began searching immediately. They found her car still in the mall parking lot, doors locked, purse inside. No struggle, no witnesses. The town of Grand Forks was thrown into panic. A missing person case quickly turned into a full-scale manhunt. Days turned into weeks. Flyers covered every lamppost. Volunteers combed the countryside, and her family made desperate pleas on national TV. But then, a critical piece of evidence surfaced. Dru's cell phone signal had last pinged from a tower near Crookston, 25 miles away. When police traced the area, they found tire marks and a name that would change everything: Alfonso Rodriguez Jr., a recently released sex offender who had been living just minutes from the mall. And when investigators searched his car, what they found inside would confirm everyone's worst fear and set off one of the most relentless small-town investigations in modern U.S. history. When investigators searched Alfonso Rodriguez Jr.'s maroon Chevrolet, they weren't prepared for what they found. Inside were strands of long blonde hair, a knife sheath, and traces of blood, all later confirmed to belong to Dru Sjodin. To the community, it was devastating confirmation. To investigators, it was the start of a battle to build an airtight case against a man who had slipped through the cracks of the justice system. Rodriguez, 50 years old, had been released from prison just 6 months earlier after serving 23 years for kidnapping and assault. He was a registered Level 3 sex offender, considered among the highest risk to reoffend. Yet he'd walked free into a small, quiet community without much public awareness. Dru's disappearance forced everyone to confront how someone so dangerous could live unnoticed in a town like Crookston. In the days following the discovery of the evidence, FBI agents, state investigators, and local police joined forces. They retraced Dru's last moments, from her final mall shift to that chilling phone call to her boyfriend. Witnesses recalled seeing a suspicious car in the lot. One remembered a man matching Rodriguez's description watching the store from a distance. Rodriguez was arrested on December 1, 2003. When agents arrived at his home, he appeared calm, even confused, claiming he had been shopping the day Dru disappeared. But forensic teams began collecting everything: shoes, clothing, car seats, searching for any link to the missing student. Still, without a body, the case was fragile. Prosecutors feared it might collapse if they couldn't prove Dru's death beyond doubt. The search stretched through the brutal North Dakota winter, helicopters scanning frozen fields, volunteers breaking through ice, and investigators using heat detection tools to search vast wilderness areas. Every lead seemed to fade into nothing. Reporters camped outside police headquarters. Dru's family refused to give up, holding nightly vigils and community prayers. "We won't stop until we bring her home," her mother, Linda Walker, said tearfully on live television. Then, in early 2004, the investigation took a breakthrough turn. Forensic testing from Rodriguez's car returned a match: DNA from Dru Sjodin's blood. It was definitive. The evidence tied her to him directly. The state now had the proof it needed. The courtroom was packed the day Rodriguez was charged with kidnapping resulting in death. As cameras flashed, he stared blankly ahead, offering no emotion. The small town of Crookston watched as federal prosecutors prepared to seek the ultimate penalty. But just as the trial began, a new twist hit the courtroom, one that would reveal a nationwide flaw in America's offender registry system and change U.S. law forever. When the trial of Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. began in 2006, the courtroom in Fargo, North Dakota, was silent. Every seat was filled: reporters, students, community members, and Dru Sjodin's family, sitting in the front row clutching photos of her smiling face. What started as a local tragedy had become one of the most closely watched criminal cases in America. Prosecutors laid out their evidence piece by piece: the DNA traces in Rodriguez's car, the matching fibers, and the timeline that placed him near the mall just minutes before Dru disappeared. They painted a portrait of a man who had been released into society despite decades of violent behavior, a man whose freedom had cost a young woman her life. But what stunned the courtroom most wasn't the crime itself, it was how preventable it had been. Through court testimony, the jury learned that Rodriguez had slipped through state supervision due to outdated laws and a fragmented offender tracking system. At the time, there was no unified national database where families could easily check for nearby sex offenders. Dru's mother, Linda Walker, sat frozen as those details were read aloud. Her daughter's death had revealed a hole in the law big enough for predators to disappear through. Outside the courthouse, the case dominated headlines. Television crews lined the streets. Across America, parents demanded reform. Politicians began drafting new legislation, and national attention turned toward one goal: making sure no other family would endure what the Sjodins had. Inside the courtroom, the evidence grew overwhelming. Forensic experts described the blood found on the car seat and clothing. Digital data showed Rodriguez's movements matching the timeline of Dru's disappearance. After weeks of testimony, the jury took just hours to reach its verdict: guilty on all counts. In 2007, Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. was sentenced to death, the first federal death penalty handed down in North Dakota in nearly a century. The room was silent as the verdict was read. Dru's family wept, not from joy, but from exhaustion. Justice had been served, but nothing could bring their daughter home. In the years that followed, something extraordinary happened. Linda Walker turned her grief into action. She worked alongside lawmakers to create the Dru Sjodin National Sex Offender Public Website, launched in 2005 by the U.S. Department of Justice. For the first time, Americans everywhere could search a public database and see who is living in their communities, a tool that has since saved countless lives. Dru's legacy became one of change, courage, and awareness. What began as a small-town tragedy reshaped national law. And today, when parents search their neighborhoods, when they check the registry that bears her name, they are reminded of one truth: justice may take time, but even the darkest stories can bring light to millions.